Hello and welcome to the TTI Distribution Download, the podcast where we talk about all things happening in the world of electronic components with the specialists of TTI. Today it's another installment of big ideas and little known facts about connectors with John Sandy of TTI and Dan Venuto of Molex.
Hello, this is Dan Venuto with Molex, and I'm here with John Sandy at TTI. Today we will be talking to Mark Schuerman, Senior Business Development Manager in Molex's Industrial Division, to discuss Molex's advances in the industrial market and the importance of distribution to them.
Hi, Mark. Great to have you on the podcast. Why don't we just kick this off and get everyone a little bit of background of who Mark Schuerman is and what it is you do.
Okay. Well, thanks for having me on the call today. Great talking with you guys. Quick summary of my background. I started working in the factory automation industry in 1995, selling products under the name of a company called Woodhead Industries or Brad Harrison Products. So I was working for a small industrial rep agency at the time, did a really good job for Woodhead, enough so that they offered me the opportunity to move to Detroit and to work directly for them. So it was, from my perspective, it was a life-changing moment for anybody who has ever worked in the world of factory automation to have the opportunity to go to Detroit and promote industrial automation solutions in the automotive industry. For me, it felt like getting called up into the big leagues from AAA ball. So very exciting time for me to get to go out and work with the automotive companies. Soon after I moved out, this was 2002, sight unseen. I'd never traveled to Detroit in my life, but when I was, again, offered the opportunity to go out, work in the automotive industry, I wasn't worried one bit about going out there. And by the way, for those who haven't been, Detroit is a beautiful place. Absolutely love it, and I highly recommend it if you ever get a chance to come out. 2006 is when Woodhead Industries was acquired by Molex. And again, for a guy who was working in the automotive industry, then getting acquired by Molex was another, in many ways, life-changing moment. We were becoming an even more global player with some of the automotive companies that we were working with, and just starting to try to think about how do we manage an automotive contract like we were embarking with one of the major automotive end users. Just in the nick of time, Molex acquired us, huge global footprint, great sales force, great support infrastructure, and really helped us step our support game up to an entirely new level. And then, of course, not too long after that, we were also acquired by Koch Industries. But maybe kind of a long answer. That's how I ended up where I'm at right now. Through these acquisitions, it's just opened up so many doors of opportunities for me to get to work with great people, great suppliers, great companies all over the world. And again, really a chance within my capacity as a business development manager, traveled the entire world. And it's really been a dream come true in many ways.
No, that's great, Mark. And for any of our listeners out there that are thinking about relocating to Detroit or visiting Detroit, Mark is obviously going to be our resident expert on all things Detroit. So thank
No doubt.
you. You know, I have a quick question. You mentioned Molex acquired Brad and Woodhead. Why did Molex make that acquisition back in 2006? What were they looking for, and what did Brad and Woodhead bring to the table?
That is a great question. And so Molex, as we all know, has been a leading supplier for electronics components, electronics connector and connectivity systems, very big and active in the commercial marketplace, consumer electronics. Molex wanted to further diversify, though. They had been, I'd say, dipping their toe into the pool of the industrial marketplace, and perhaps to a certain degree, even factory automation. Woodhead Industries and the company Brad Harrison that Woodhead had acquired was a well-known player and market leader in the area of industrial connectivity solutions. And to put it into further perspective, for those who may not be as familiar with us on the industrial side, Brad Harrison was the first company to start molding connectors onto cables for factory automation systems. And they started doing it for the automotive marketplace. Before that was ever done, if you think about it, if a device failed on a factory floor, an electrician or a maintenance person had to go into the assembly line, physically unwire with a screwdriver the connections to those devices and wire it back up. The change out time of a damaged device was quite long. And within the automotive industry, they say that 1 minute of downtime costs $22,000 per minute. Now, that can get very expensive. Time is of the essence. So they were looking for a solution that would allow people to change a failed component, just like we change a light bulb at home. You unscrew it, you screw the new one in, you're back up and running in no time. So Woodhead Industries and Brad Harrison, they were the first company to start delivering what we now call plug and play wiring systems. Started with just simple sensor connectivity type applications. It was so wildly popular, though, that there is hardly a cable that doesn't have a connector molded to it, at least in an automotive plant. But I don't want to be so automotive centric. You look at any piece of industrial machinery, I would say 90% of them or more have at least one sensor that's got an M12 or an M8 connector. I mean, when Woodhead and Brad Harrison started doing this, they literally changed the way wiring is being done in industrial machinery. So they have been a leader in that space. Molex wanted to make an acquisition that would really open the doors up for them in the industrial space. And I would say it's a match made in heaven. You've got two great companies, especially Molex, very good company in traditionally the electronics field, married up with Woodhead and Brad, very solid industrial connectivity company. You put us together, I think there's no stopping us.
So there's a quick follow-up to that, Mark, actually. What do you think that has done for the customer when it comes to what they can expect coming from that amalgamation of Brad Woodhead going into the Molex with the bigger Molex outreach and obviously the distribution network? What do you think the benefits have been for the customer over those years?
So for the customer, again, there's a number of things, but I would say first and foremost, and as I was alluding to earlier, we've got a great global footprint. And within that footprint, then that means that we've got world-class distributors like TTI, right, that have locations all over the world that help bring our products to the customers and to the marketplace, where I'd say virtually anywhere they're needed. Certainly the major commercial and industrial centers. Great engineering resources, great sales teams and sales resources. And also with that, it brings, let's call it a deep bench of engineering competency that, when you think about it, Molex has done amazing things, again, on the electronic side. Woodhead and Brad have done great things on the industrial side. And we're at a point right now, though, where there really is a global convergence that's starting to take place, where with the IoT technology, and we'll call it the IIoT technology, that brings so many different technologies and so many products together by connecting things onto networks, using the internet more and more to collect and to analyze data. I think it opens up a wealth of opportunities for us to really capitalize on all of our competencies and deliver unique and innovative solutions that the world needs right now.
Thank you, Mark. And, some of the buzzwords we hear in the industry right now are Industry 4.0. So, can you tell us a little bit about how Molex is approaching new product development and what is driving the decision making on these new products?
Okay, so I'm only thinking to myself, there's a couple of different roads that we can go down here. So on the one hand, Industry 4.0 and IIoT, or the Industrial Internet of Things, is about building more intelligence and more connectivity into the products and the solutions that are going into the factory floor. So with that, and when you look at the industrial group, first of all, and what we've been focused on over the years, number one, it's the wiring systems and the wiring solutions that are delivering the data and the power to the machines and to the devices that are out on the factory floor. Now, there's natural competitive pressures as well as design needs that are driving the innovation that's going on right now. And to simplify it most, I would say it's getting more power and more data through smaller and smaller connectors. At the same time, on the factory floor with IIoT and Industry 4.0, that means there's more decentralization of the controls and the control strategy. So that is about being able to make more devices communicate and to have logic or decision-making capability inside of them. And that fits in to another part of the Molex industrial legacy that I haven't talked about yet, and that's in the area of industrial communications. We're also a very good company when it comes to embedding the ability of a device to communicate within a factory control system. There are certain industrial protocols that devices communicate with. Rockwell, Siemens, Omron, Mitsubishi, they're typically the controls providers that are out there. Their devices communicate with each other. Typically today, let's just keep the conversation around some form of Ethernet. So it's going to be Ethernet IP, Profinet, EtherCAT, CC-Link or CC-Link IE. And then there's also safety protocols that are associated with those technologies. So where you have Ethernet IP, you'll also have SIP safety. Where you have Profinet, you'll have ProfiSafe. EtherCAT will have functional safety over EtherCAT. We're a very important supplier of the communication technology, whether it's safe or non-safe, to the device manufacturers as well. So that's driving two very important needs. We're focused on making connectors that, again, are going to get more power through smaller connector interfaces, more data through smaller connector interfaces, and embed the technology that allows those devices to also communicate. I'll add, just to finish the point, this is where I really feel being a part of Molex helps us a lot, because Molex and their experience working on the electronic side, they've got a lot of capability and a lot of understanding already, right? Serving two different markets that, like I said before now, there's this planetary convergence that's taking place. And I feel like we can help folks on the electronic side get more ruggedness into the solutions that they're trying to deliver to their customers. And the electronic side can help us on the industrial side with the miniaturization process, getting that more power, getting that more data. I think there's existing form factors on the electronic side that can, for lack of a better term, be industrialized more and give us some advantages with the needs that are out there.
So we see the whole sort of process and program on the industrial side getting more and more complex, and more involved, more and more parts. How does distribution help the customer in this world as it's coming together? And specifically, how does the sort of relationship that TTI and Molex have really benefit the customer in your opinion?
I'd say a few key ways. Number one, distributors touch a lot of customers, right? So certainly there's a multiplier effect in terms of the ability to reach the customers, to be engaged with the customers. Another natural byproduct of working with distributors is that distributors like TTI have so many additional complementary products that they can bring to the customer. It helps us to build a more complete solution at the customer level, right? Molex will fulfill a certain part of it, but TTI and the other products that you have and lines that you represent allows that added value to be brought to the customer in delivering the full solution of what they're looking for. So that's one thing. Another very important value that our channel partners and TTI brings, and this I can't tell you how much I'm talking about this with customers and the Molex salespeople. I think we've all seen now what an impact Amazon has had on the world and with customer expectations of service and of delivery. And this is a customer experience that a manufacturing company like Molex cannot deliver on its own to the customer. We need to have a very strong distribution partner, companies like TTI, that can really help customers feel comfortable that, hey, if I need something, it's hard for me to always anticipate what I need to have. And I think when you look at companies like TTI, the lineage that you have as part of Berkshire Hathaway, right? And companies like Molex and the lineage that we have and the resources that we have working together, we can bring that sort of a customer experience. We need good, strong channel partners to make that happen.
Thank you, Mark. And moving back to the new product development arena, what products can we expect in 2023 from the Molex Industrial Business Group?
So, number one, I'd say one of the most exciting new products that we're introducing this year is something that I consider to be a highly innovative and transformational solution, especially for the factory automation, factory floor space. And this is a product called Single Pair Ethernet. So for those who may not be familiar with single pair Ethernet, there are similar technologies that are on the marketplace. So again, let's go back to what we were talking about before. A lot of intelligence is being built into automation systems today through Industry 4.0 and the industrial Internet of Things. And Ethernet is all over the factories today. But interestingly, there's been one area, or let's call it one application space, where devices have not been getting connected to the Ethernet networks or to the internet. And that's at the very edge of the automation system, what they call the field level, which is where all of the sensors and the actuators are. And the main reason why there's been a challenge to getting these devices onto these networks is because they're very small, and being able to put that communication technology onto these little devices just and power, deliver all of that into something as small as a little proximity sensor. There hasn't been a practical way of doing it until single pair Ethernet has arrived on the scene. So most Ethernet connectivity on the factory floor has been either 2-pair or 4-pair technology. It's been using RJ45s or some sort of an M12 connector, typically an M12 decode for Cat5e. More and more applications are moving to gigabit or higher, which has been on the factory floor using M12 Xcode technology. But now with single pair Ethernet, there's a small connector form factor that allows that power and that Ethernet connection to be delivered through either an M8 or an M12 connector and one twisted pair of wire, the power and the Ethernet. Up to 1 gigabit of data is supported, up to 15 meters. And boy, forgive me, it's either 40 or 50 watts of power as well, all in that one connector. So that's opening up new possibilities to get that last leg of the factory automation system connected. And I'd say the most important one, all that sensing data, all that sensing information collected, sent to a controller, sent up to the cloud, connected to the AI so that people can monitor and manage their processes from cloud all the way down to the sensor now. So that's one.
That's certainly probably one of the most exciting products that's coming out in 2023. Do you have any timings on that new product introduction, Mark, and when you would expect the inventory to be out in the channel for the customers to start using it?
So the product, the single pair Ethernet, there's an IP20 jack and cable system, as well as an IP67, I'll call it receptacle or jack and also cable system that's just launched in January. And I would say that the inventories are just becoming available. So we're right here at that time where it's becoming available. And I would say now is the time for Molex and TTI to be engaging with the customers, introducing the technology, talking to the customers about the use cases, the value of implementing this technology, and getting those first use cases underway.
So, Mark, you said that's one. If there was another product that you had an opportunity to expose the customers and the listeners on the podcast to, what would you choose?
Well, if we're going to talk about just one, rather than going through a few, so let's go. I'd have to say, from a industrial connectivity standpoint, what is really emerging in an ever increasing way is M12 power as well. So what M12 power is allowing people that build industrial devices and installing factory automation systems to do is to get up to 16 amps of power out to the industrial control devices. We've been pretty well capped off at about 10 amps now. I'm seeing more and more demand that's being driven by more servo motor technology, and the fact with the industrial Internet of Things, just more control devices out there, more demand for control power, that's causing people to want a connector with more power capacity as well. So M12 power is allowing us to increase the amount of power available in the automation systems by 60%, in a smaller form factor as well, an M12 rather than a 7/8 inch mini change. So we're seeing wide scale adoption and increasing demand in that category.
Thank you, Mark. And how do you see the market developing as we move forward in 2023 in regards to industrial connectivity product? And are there any challenges out there that may lay ahead?
Well, first I will reference some studies that have been done by automation research groups. If you go back to 2018, the industrial automation market was about $150 billion worldwide. And research groups were projecting that we'd be at about $300 billion by roughly 2022. We're actually at about 250 billion from what I've seen. And now that projection was made pre-pandemic. Now, the pandemic has had a very interesting impact on factory automation. And while we certainly wouldn't wish a pandemic on anybody, and there's been a lot of challengers there, what it's also done, though, is it has created an increased sense of awareness for manufacturing companies that it's harder and harder to get manpower, right? And to have dependable factory help. And I'd say there's increasing wage rates that are out there as well. It's putting a lot of pressure on manufacturing companies. So that's even further driving increasing automation and increasing intelligence in the way that people are automating their systems. So if the projection was that we'd be at roughly 300 billion by now, we're at about 250 billion, and it's anticipated that the market's going to continue to grow at a similar rate upwards to about $600 billion worldwide by 2030, 2032. I'll say that we are seeing great growth for Molex Industrial. From my perspective, there are once in a lifetime forces that are at work here that for me as an automation business development manager / sales guy, it's a great time to be alive.
Now, I know obviously that growth has had some challenges when it comes to supply chain and the whole back end and getting product where it needs to be when it needs to be there. Is that easing off? Are we getting into more of a normal sort of setup as we move through 2023? And are the distributors there, and can they help the customer?
So I would say that it's stabilizing, but I'm still seeing ongoing challenges in the microchip and semiconductor side of the business. I think when it comes to copper, resins, the materials that we're using, I think we've all gotten used to longer lead times. I think we made some adjustments in the way that we're doing our procurement. I also think that the automation suppliers, the line builders, the integrators, they've also made some adjustments. And again, I think one of the lessons learned and the things that I've seen throughout the last 3 years is the industry's really come together in the way that we're forecasting and that we're planning with each other. I would say that the distributors and companies like TTI, you guys play a vital role. We want to work with you, engaging with the customers to do longer range forecasting and planning than maybe we used to do in the past because we didn't need to, right? Much shorter lead times, much more agility and the ability to react to spikes in the business existed. So we've stabilized and we've adjusted, I would say. But I think there's still supply chain issues that are out there, but we've learned how to work around it and how to better plan for that.
Oh, absolutely, Bark. And thank you for joining this week. As always, TTI is stocking a lot of these parts. So hopefully, we can alleviate some of those supply chain challenges with a great partner like TTI. And I want to thank our audience for listening on this episode. And check back next week as myself and John Sandy, again, will be talking about big ideas and little known facts in the world of connectors.
That's it for this episode of the TTI Distribution Download. For more information on any of the topics you heard about today, reach out to your nearby TTI branch at 1-800-CALL-TTI or visit us online at tti.com.